Thank you, Kimberly. Um, I've had people come back to me after this conversation and say things like, "Wow, you know what? I don't think we want to spend all $600,000 that we can spend on the house we're going to live in. After that little consultation, I think we want to spend only $500,000 and then maybe buy a second investment property." Or they come back and say, "You know what? We've been thinking about what you said in that consultation about wealth building, and maybe instead of buying a small ranch, we'd like to look for like an up and down or a side-by-side duplex, because then somebody else could be paying the mortgage and then we could keep it when we go and buy our own single family house and put us on the road towards passive income," right? And so I think that when you explain it to people that way, that we're giving you information so that you can make the best decision with your money possible, you give people an understanding about why this is an important conversation, and they don't blow it off. Does that make sense? So either on the list side or the buy side. And if you're just coming in to the recording, unfortunately, I wasn't recording the list side. So if you hang around at the end, I'll say what I said again on the list side, so we can have it on the recording. So number two, speaking of recordings, I think that you could do this one time to the camera, and then instead of setting an appointment with every single person that you sign in that first week, in the first 24 to 48 hours, you send them the recording of your consultation and then set up a follow-up Q&A session as the actual live thing. Because now you're doing it one time for the camera, and they can watch it at their convenience. I think even people who might push back on that would still accept the link and watch it just to kind of make you happy, right? So you don't have to do this live. Some of you may say, "You know what? No, I think I absolutely want to do it live every time." But you can also decide that Memorex is just as well, right? Is it Silva Live or is it Memorex? And you deliver them the recording and then set up the Q&A on the other side. And of course, the mastermind portion of today is what does that really look like? And so I think what it does is it briefly outlines the opportunity, dives quickly. I mean, this is not an hour and a half investor seminar, right? Although one of the things we talked about last week was if in fact, sadly, Donna, almost anything I say nowadays dates myself, because now I'm old, right? I used to not be old, and now I'm old. Right? I don't know. There was a rule when we first opened the Ridgefield Market Center. There was a rule that we wouldn't hire anyone younger than me. Now, if we did that, we'd be empty. So, so briefly defining the opportunity and then diving into a short version of, I wrote down three things: types of investors, criteria, money, management, and benefits. Right? So types of investors, criteria, money, management of the asset, and the benefits to them of going down this path. So I think if you just kind of touch on those five things in this half hour or so thing, then you're good, right? The other opportunity you have is that we do have my investor seminar on tape. And so if people, because I think Kimberly, you were the one who said, I have to learn more before I can sit and comfortably have these conversations. And the cool news is that, as I said last week, I think any of you who have lived around me or been to any of those investor seminars, you've heard it enough. You know what to say, and if left on your own without a safety net, you could get yourself through a conversation that was relevant and powerful. I'm certain of that. And you always have the recording of my last investor seminar to go back on if you want to kind of hear some of the things, how they're said, hear some of the way questions were answered, right? So you have a resource there. You also have a resource there if in fact you have somebody who gets who's like, oh my goodness, from this half hour, I want to know more. Well, they don't have to wait for the next one because now we have it recorded. So you could just send that to them and say, okay, you want to know more? Here, listen to Rick for an hour and a half, and then let's have a follow-up again, and we can answer even more questions, right? So you can kind of step them through a process. And then my last note about this process has everything to do with giving them a little gift, right? So part of the whole idea of you having these conversations with them is that you're going to give them either the whole book or the MREI at the end. So even if they don't decide to do anything today, you've got something in their hand, you've given a gift, they're loving on you, right? And they have a resource to refer back to, that when they see it sitting on the dining room table 6 months later, they think, well, you know what, I have to call Alice because I never took the next step on this. And that was sort of interesting what she said to us. Let's dive back in, right? So that to me is kind of the from space, the outline of all of this. Who's got thoughts and ideas about how to really make that sing differently, bigger, better? What are your thoughts? How do we flesh this out even more? Go ahead, Sola.
I don't know if it will help, but I hope it will. So what I'm doing for the past 2 months, I'm working on myself and my mindset. And one thing that I'm doing, I'm growing my YouTube channel, and I post videos every day. So I made it part of my life. And the way it helps is that you have to actually prepare yourself. First, you need to know what to say. Secondly, you need to bring yourself in the right state of mind and state of exposure, because you cannot talk to people if you're not projecting the highest level of energy that you can possibly bring to the table, so that they can get engaged and trust you. Give structure. So I'm learning all this, and I think that this is something now I'm so grateful to you, because now I'm going to actually start my real estate YouTube channel the same way. And I'm going to do 1 or 2 or 3 minute, not more than that, real estate conversation, which is going to be geared towards your presentation today. That's why I just want to have it word for word, so I can actually interpret it in my own words and put it to work.
Sure, got it. Right, and I love that idea of building more resource channels for the buyer and the seller, right? It kind of goes hand in hand with the conversation we're having today, because when that resource channel, that you resource medium is built and robust, this just becomes a part of it, right? It just becomes a part of it. Maybe there's a whole vendor side of things where you're doing videos about, who to hire to do your lawn, who to hire as your plumber, who to hire as your, right? And so we start to, this is not just a sole channel, it's one of many channels that we're going down. What else do you guys see as an opportunity to put more, to put more flesh on the bones of this idea? What else do we need?
I mean, we need testimonials.
Well, certainly testimonials would help if you start to get resistance, right? If you start to get resistance to the idea, you got to start doing it first before you can grab the testimonials, right? So maybe you have just investors that you've worked with who are more professional investors in the past, feed into you and your business some testimonials around, yeah, it's Silva helped me buy my first property, my second property, my third property, and now I have 50 of them, and I'm sailing around the Caribbean on my yacht each winter, blah blah blah, right? What about the conversation itself? Because I know there were questions and some conversation around what the conversation itself would look like. So I outlined it for you a little bit, like types of investors, criteria, money management, and benefits. What else do we need to know to make that more robust, to make that clearer?
So Rick, I'm going to jump out there. So I agree with what you said earlier, that we probably know more than we think we know, and we could muddle through a pretty basic conversation and find that we can handle that. I will tell you that as I've attempted to do it, I realized that all you really have to do is know more than they do. And sometimes it's surprising, even though they might be throwing around a lot of jargon, you know, return on investment and all the stuff that's in the books, that when you're actually having a conversation, they don't truly understand what that means either. They've just heard the words. So realizing that you actually are an asset, you actually have had more conversations on this, and like you said, practicing. So what would help me, I've gone to your seminar a zillion times, and those two books that you pointed out are massively helpful. I would feel a little bit more comfortable knowing more about how the money part, in terms of getting the mortgage. So maybe having more conversations with like Karen Mulreed or other people that are actually to help people, so I can understand, and then I can also help people understand how that actually works and it flows and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really smart, Donna, because where that makes my brain go is if so us knowing a little bit more about the money, we can set something up where Tammy and Donna, Tammy and Karen, thank you.
Karen, yep.
Tammy and Karen come in and just talk to us a little bit more, like they do at the investment seminar. So and I can work with them to kind of give us some scripts. But then I think, you know what else would be cool is have them do some of this in a 5-minute video or a 4-minute video to give an outline, so that as you're having this conversation with them, you could say, you know, and I'm not the expert on the money side. However, I'm in business with two people who really are. Let's take a listen to one of them now. Boom.
Perfect. Yeah.
Right. And utilize this world of you don't have to be live anymore. Right. Right. I see Kimberly's face on, and it was one of her children who was one of our winners to go to Gary's Quantum Leap for Young Adults thing a couple of weeks ago. And I had asked the three winners, or the adults attached to the three winners, if they would be willing to come on and give us their ahas and about their experience at like one of our 9 a.m. Zoom calls. And of course, people have work, right? They're young adults. They're not sitting home playing video games, hopefully. And my thought at this point is, well, we don't need to have them live. We could ask them each to do a 3-minute or so video about the things that they learned. Oh, hi, Amber. That's funny. Now she's enormously embarrassed, Kimberly. I get it. I have an 18-year-old too. But what we could do is ask Amber and ask Ben and ask Izzy, could they do a 3-minute or so video saying, hey, just wanted to touch base. These are the 3 awesome things that I learned. Here's how I'm going to use it, so that we don't have to necessarily make the schedule work. I'd love to have them live. And yet if we can't do that because of scheduling, instead of not having them at all, we could just pop that into video, right? And I think that one of the things that we have to continue to remember, because here's the reality. When you're Amber's age, she's sitting on the couch listening to me say that, thinking like, well, duh. Like, why wouldn't you just do it that way? Because the difference between being someone who's 18 and being someone who's older is that because we didn't grow up with video everything, right? We don't go to that as quickly as that younger generation does. And I think from a business perspective, we have to continue to train ourselves to keep thinking about, well, what's the other way we can get that done? How can we substitute in technology for and have that be effective and efficient, right?
Definitely. Can I just put in one more request since you're writing down?
Of course.
With the Karen and the Tammy, with mortgage people, I would love to have a conversation, and they could do this by video also, doesn't matter to me, but I'd love to walk through the process once. I'd like them to kind of role play or mirror or show me, what actually happens. You know, so I feel like I've seen it once. I know what it looks like for a residential property. I'd love to see, you know, how it flows. Maybe it's exactly the same. I'm thinking it's probably a little different, but yeah, something like that. Uh-oh.
Unless you're talking about commercial investment, which is different. The residential investment side versus the residential, it says my internet connection is
Yeah, no, you're freezing every now and then. Yeah.
okay. It's not the first time I've been called unstable, so we'll get through it. For all intents and purposes, the mortgage process with an investment property, if it's residential, is almost identical. Almost identical. To the point where you wouldn't even notice some of the small differences. And yet having the experts in that field kind of walk us through that
Yes.
is a great idea. I love it. Kimberly.
So to piggyback on that, so literally like the pre-approval process. So now I have a primary residence and it's like, let's say it's a townhouse. And I am thinking about buying a duplex, let's say in West Hartford. So I guess the question is, how do I know I'm ready for that next step? Like how much of a down payment do I have to have? You know, for residential first-time home buyers, they know they can do 3.5%, they can do 5%, 10%, 20%. But now that I have that first home that I own, how do I know, what are the metrics that I would use to figure out, okay, this is what I need to save up to have an investment property. You know, and I think it goes beyond the down payment. To your point in one of your classes, it also goes to reserves, right? So, you know, as some people have seen who have investment properties during this COVID time, you know, you want to have reserves enough to cover that mortgage should something happen and you don't have the best of tenants to pay the bill, so that you're able to cover that, right? And understanding that, I think is also kind of important for the next step. Like I had a closing yesterday with a young lady. She bought a property in Norwalk, and it has an official auxiliary apartment, right? With a bedroom, kitchenette, bathroom. And so she's looking at that to say, okay, so I'm going to get my first tenant in here. You know, I'm going to do some work. And so I'm going to get somebody in here. But once that gets stable, she's thinking in the next 6 to 12 months, she may be ready for that next step. I want to be able to say, okay, in 6 to 12 months, you're maybe ready for the next step. This is what we need to have, right? And I think that's where Tammy and Karen come in with, okay, so your debt to income ratio needs to be this. You know, we tell our clients when they're purchasing their first home, you want to have, you know, you have your closing costs, you have your down payments. You also need your reserves, because as soon as you move in, everything is fine. Now your water heater burst, and that's like $1,200. Now, if you spent everything for your initial investment, you don't have that. Now, what do you do? So I think we want to make sure that they understand that as well. And I think also to Donna's point, you know, everyone, when people think about investments, this is where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready to have the conversation, is people throw out, okay, so what's the cap ratio? You know, and I'm like, I have no idea what a cap ratio is or how you calculate that. You know, the return on investment, going back to your metrics, Ricks, and I really think maybe if we can have that, your recording in a chat, so that we can go back. You were like, okay, my goal for any of my properties is monthly to break even, not to break even, but to have a profit of $1,000 each? Is that what you're looking at? I think
Per door. Yeah, $1,000 per door.
$1,000 per door. And it's like, okay, so how do we get there? You know, what price range should we be looking at? Because I think everyone on this call, we're very good at selling residential, this is your primary residence. But to your point, we want to be their realtor for life, and that goes to building their wealth portfolio of properties.
Did we lose Rick?
Oh, boy. Maybe we did. He was unstable.
I think we did lose him. I don't see him on here.
Yeah.
I guess we just wait for him to come back.
Yeah, he will. He'll figure it out.
It looks like it's still recording.
Yeah, it's still recording.
Yeah, we just
I don't
lost
think
him.
that-
It says that Silva's the host right now.
I'm texting him right now.
Another good thing, since we may as well just keep the conversation going, is probably to recommend that if they do buy an investment property, that they have one of
Oh,
the,
did you get a response from him? It looks like the internet is down.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. Alrighty.
as I was saying, it's probably a good idea for us to recommend them getting like a home warranty that they have in case anything in the house breaks down, you know? So they don't have to expend that kind of money or have extra reserves for those kind of things.
And you know, that's interesting because that came up in one of Rick's classes, and he said sometimes, and yet once you get a few, it doesn't necessarily play out best that way, just knowing the proper reserves, because what are the chances of all of them going down, you know? So there's some nuance to that as well, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea of using, you know, the technology. I actually had some reach out to me to find out when my next home buyers seminar is going to be, because, you know, I used to do them in the office, and it took me by surprise, because I'm like, well, clearly it's not going to be in the office anytime soon. But then but she was of that age where
Yes.
like, okay, so maybe I do need to do this on Zoom and get like an attorney who's going to be comfortable doing it, get a lender who's going to be comfortable doing it, and doing it that way. And you know, to Rick's point, the younger generation, they are, you know, they always have their phones with them and they're looking for things that way. We just have to kind of get over ourselves. I'll just say,
You know,
I have to get over
Yeah,
myself
we all
and
do.
not
Yeah.
worry about things being perfect.
I got into a conversation about the quote unquote millennials. Oh my God, the millennials this, the millennials that. And I actually chimed in and said, you know, I love working with millennials because I learned so much from them. Just to this point, it's like, I don't try to fight it. It's like, what are you doing that I need to know how to do? Because it's so much easier with technology. They're just embracing it.
I think if we could all put together like quick 3 to 5 minute videos with either ourselves or the lender partners speaking on the topic, it's great not just to send out on demand to like a specific buyer or seller we're trying to make into an investor. It's great to blast out to your whole database in like an email drip campaign. So if you have like 8 evergreen videos on a certain subject, you can send once a week for 8 weeks, and it's a touch point for you. Plus it's informational content.
For sure, that's a great idea.
So where would you
Great
house
idea.
these type of videos, Chris?
Where would their like home be?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
Did we lose him off the top of your head?
Chris,
Chris, we couldn't hear that. What do you say?
Off the top of my head, my answer would be YouTube, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would be
where-
YouTube.
Right. I would put it on my YouTube channel. I'd also use it as some of my Facebook ads that I've been pumping out.
Agreed. You know, I'd say YouTube's like, I mean, it's like a massive search engine. I think it's probably the first or almost our second biggest search engine in the world now. People search things through YouTube.
Exactly.
And that's going to build like SEO, and you'll just start popping up in the rankings the more, you know, you have on there.
Okay. Thank you.
As this conversation was going on, I was thinking about past clients that I had. And, for most people, opening up this conversation is going to be abstract for them, not something that they'd ever thought about. And I had met this couple a number of years ago, and they had just had a baby, and they wanted to purchase a condo as an investment property. And their thinking was in 18 years, they would sell it to pay for college. And then 3 years later, they had another kid. They called me up. We want to buy another condo for the same purpose. And so, yeah, it was great. I mean, truthfully, the really good thing for me was 5 years later, they decided they didn't want to be landlords, so they called me to list them both. But my point really is that if depending on who the people are, to come in with some type of scenario that might make sense for them and the situation they're in, so it's just not completely abstract. So again, whether it's a young couple saying, buy something for purposes of college, or a different scenario for somebody who is, maybe in their 50s and thinking about retirement, looking for another avenue to save for retirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I also think that there are some people who may be nervous at becoming landlords. I took a course with the Bridgeport Neighborhood Trust on, landlord law almost. And there are people who are in the class who their goal was to purchase a multi-unit property. And there was a housing attorney who was there that was able to kind of walk them through different scenarios, how, fair housing that we know and we can speak to. So to Chris's point, that may be a great additional video to have in your library. To do that, so that they kind of know the ins and the outs. And then side note, you may actually have a business opportunity to be the property manager for your clients. I have 2 clients that we have investment properties that we went through and they worked. They don't want to be, they're landlords, but they don't want to get the calls. So, these properties are local enough where I actually manage them. And that means I'm the person that goes between them and the landlord for small repairs and things of that nature. And that can be an additional form of revenue for you, an additional table to your business chair.
That's a great idea. Coming up with common concerns and objections and the nervousness of who you're presenting to, the first time investors. If you could seek out outside professionals in the space, like the attorneys, and have them answer those most common concerns. That's a single video in itself, 2-3 minutes, and it's something that could be presented at that time. Plus, you'll know how to answer that concern and objection as well from your own point of view.
Right. Cool.
I really hope this is still recording.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Oh, but I do think we missed Rick.
His internet is down. He said he was trying to get back on.
So has anyone actually, between the whole book and the MREI book, kind of if someone who's read both of those, what's the major difference? If I'm just starting to get into the thought of having these conversations with my clients, which one should I read first?
I would read
both?
Yeah, I have a couple of times. The blue book, the investor book, I'd read that first. The first half of it is basically just financial management, planning, all kinds of stuff, and then it gets into the investment piece. So it's really a good foundation. Hold is more, it's about that, but it's about specifically buying properties and keeping them long term. So it's a next step.
Mm-hmm.
The concepts are great, all of them. I'd read the blue book first, the investor book, MREI, and then I'd read Hold after that.
Okay. So
Hold
then
is more the McKissicks. If you know
that.
Sorry. Are you there? Because you're freezing.
Okay, so the MREI is probably the one the MREI is probably the one that you would give to your clients to read.
Yeah, first, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's more
Until they get more-
foundational, but it's not basic, but it's more foundational. It starts from the beginning, takes you all the way through everything.
Okay, cool.
Hold is more about a specific type of real estate investing, as in buying and keeping it for the longer term. It's the Linda McKissick and her husband, I can't think of his name. It's their strategy. And you know, they have, I don't know, hundreds of properties now.
Oh yeah, yep. Okay, cool.
Silva, as the host, can you unmute Rick?
Is he on?
There he is. He's back. I see him.
Oh, yay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've never Zoomed on my phone before, and apparently I'm not very good at it because I kept hanging up on myself. No one can hear me. You guys are talking. I'm like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All righty. Well, that was fun. Technology glitches. You know, it's funny when you go all in online, and that's the only way you can communicate with a group of people, and then you don't have access. I'm like, all right, now what do I do? All righty. So I heard some of the things you guys were talking about, and I will, and IU. And the answer to Chris's question was yes, I think that recorded through the whole time. When I got dropped, somebody else, I think, got made the host automatically. So the recording should have continued because it's recording to the cloud, and it doesn't have anything to do with my my connection. So all those ideas, I'll make sure I go back and listen to that recording and write them down. Here's my question. I'm wondering if it makes sense to would this be simpler for people to implement if I took a stab at what one of these meetings looked like and kind of wrote out like a script, like an outline, like
Yes.
I do my own investor seminars, right? I can just lift some pieces from the investor seminar and kind of crib together a basic outline. And then what we should do is I should just like practice it with one of you, where we just sit and kind of run through it, and then we get to see how long it is. We see if it's comprehensive enough, and then decide together what we need to add and subtract to it to make it sing. Would that be the next best step?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Rick,
I
you think
agree.
about it. Rick, you think about it. This is just like we would have a class on a listing presentation or a buyer's consultation.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah. It's the IC, the investor consult.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yep.
Exactly. Perfect. I love that.
Oh, now we even have a name for it. It's the IC. Oh, baby.
All tingly.
All tingly is right. Here's someone who's heard me for a long time. P.S. DiBiase, while I still have you, I had your book today, and I just never brought it down to you. So if you're in on Monday, I have your book in my office. Thank you for letting me borrow it.
I was like, what book? Now I remember.
Yeah, I wanted my daughter to read it, but she's like, it's so big.
What
Really,
book?
but
What book?
Living with a Seal.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It's that video I showed you guys a couple
Yeah.
of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
It's that guy. It's the book he wrote
Mm-hmm.
about having David Goggins train him for a month. Great book, a lot of fun to read. Light. It's not like heavy business book. Now I'm reading a book called Tax-Free Wealth. Oh my God.
Boring.
Now, take sharp pencils and shove them in both of my eyes. At any rate, so let's do that. I'll work on that a little bit and see, is there anything else that you want to contribute to that writing so that I make sure I'm writing down the path that you want to see? Is there anything to be certain that I include other than the things that we've talked about? Do you agree that keeping it kind of lighter rather than a deep dive, kind of giving them an overview makes the best sense in this scenario?
Yes.
Okay.
I
To
agree.
begin with, yeah.
I'll do that. Okay. All right, well, that gives me my marching orders. I thought I'd be bored this weekend, but now I know I won't be.
Although I would like to add something.
Yes, ma'am.
So keeping it light is great. However, they get lost if you don't give them some kind of meat, really, and substance. And I texted you, I'm going to text you again. So, and you know, most of the investors, and I work with lots of investors, and I'm getting investors calls like daily now, because I think that this is becoming the new thing. People begin to appreciate the opportunity, but they have no clue what they're getting themselves into. So I get these calls all that I want to invest, I want to invest. And then once you start explaining to them, they start to need to know more. So keeping it light, I don't know to what extent to keeping it light. I'm going to send you the text message that I got from my investors when I completely lost them. And when there is one thing I noticed in their conversations, when they don't understand, they stop asking because they don't know exactly what to ask. And also they don't want to show like lack of knowledge. And the escape that they take is, oh, I'm in no rush. And yes, the text message that I sent to you was like, we feel like the market right now is so hot. We're going to wait until it slows down, and then we're going to go and dive into it. So I think that we can use this question, and everyone from can come and send some questions from investors, like from real lifetime, so that we can use this to come up with objection handlers and scripts that you may come up with.
Got it. Love it. Yeah, I did receive that text, Silva. I remember it now. And let's remember, there's nothing that works 100% of the time. There's no objection handler that's 100% effective. And there are some people who have the opposite opinion about what they should be doing. I mean, I will tell you that for me, the fact that the market is moving so quickly, do I know I'm going to have to spend more for my investment properties because I might have to fight for them? Yes, I do. But see, it's the difference. I think the difference is between a casual investor and someone who really understands what this could do. I am looking to build my investment portfolio so that it replaces the income of the day jobs that the people in my household have right now. So I have to make up a lot of income by continuing to purchase. I can't wait for it to slow down. I could be dead by then, right? So the idea of helping people make those steps, you got to get to the root of why they're investing. If they're just casual investors, there is no real great objection handler for that, except for the fact that, yes, the market is hot, but one of the reasons the market is hot is because interest rates are so crazy low that money is almost free. So even if you have to fight for a property or pay retail for a property, your money is so cheap that it's a wash, right? So don't put off your wealth. Don't put off your retirement. Don't put off your ability to create passive income for yourself. Because I believe that. I'm running the numbers because the interest rates are so low. Anything I might have to spend extra, it's all just coming out in the wash. I still get my criteria, I meet my return, and I don't have to worry about it, right? It sounds to me, Silva, when people say things like that, they don't understand their own criteria or their own why well enough, right? Because if they understood their criteria and recognized that even if you have to pay $10,000 more for a property and you make it up in interest rate, the numbers are all still the numbers.
Right.
And as long as it meets your criteria, you pull the trigger and you say yes, right? Or else you have investors who are too subjective, right? They're not objective enough, and that could be tied into their why. So I would explore both of those things with them.
Rick, I actually am going to forward to you the email that I sent to these investors, the way I chose to put it together, so that we can have a discussion about that.
Sounds good.
You know what that kind of reminds me of a little bit, Rick?
Yes.
It reminds me of when foreclosures and short sales all of a sudden hit and people were like, oh, can you find me a foreclosure? Can you find, everybody's looking for the deal. They're going to find the secret thing that nobody else has. And they're going to get in real low. And so, this whole investing idea, people would jump at it if it was easy. And it's actually a little bit of work. There is some risk. You have to know what you're doing. It's not rocket science, but it's more than just finding something cheap and renting it out for a lot. It's more than that.
Yeah. No, and that's 100% true, Donna. And the flip side of the same coin of that conversation is that our job is to help people recognize that the benefit outweighs the risk, right? The benefit, because you've all heard me say it. If you've been to that investor seminar, you've heard me say, I may not be the smartest investor in the room. I may not be the biggest investor in the room. I'm not a genius. I just took action, right? And so the idea of taking action regardless and not, I think many of you have heard me say this as well. This buyer script works with investors as well. When they go for I want to go for the foreclosure, I want to go for the short sale, I'm looking for the deal. Oh, you're kidding. I am so sorry. We don't have those.
Yes.
Just to say that to buyers who would come and sit and consult with me flat out. What are you looking for? Well, we really want a deal. Oh, really? Can you describe that for me? Well, we want something that's 10%, 15% below market. Yeah, we don't have those here. So what else are you looking for? Right? And just tell them that that's not real. Because frankly, investors unless you're an investor who wants to buy way under market and sell quickly because the market moves and makes you money, if you're a buy and hold investor, as long as the cash flow works, what difference does it make how much you spend going in, as long as you have that to spend going in? Right? It's your criteria. It's the money. It's the return that you're looking for that should drive that, not whether or not it qualifies as a deal. Because like I said, for me personally, the area that I choose to invest in, I think I screwed myself. I bought all the deals and I told everybody about it, and now there's no. Now, my properties that I purchased already in Waterbury are worth way more than I ever thought they'd be worth, which is great on paper for my net worth. But unless I'm actually going to sell them, it doesn't matter, because I'm still making the same amount of money from a cash flow perspective, regardless of whether they're here or here. So I don't pay too much attention about that. It doesn't matter to me.
And that's it. So a few people were asking about the two books. And the Hold book actually goes into that in great detail. Don't you agree? The McKissicks talk about their whole, and it's the Hold concept. Everybody hears about the sexiness of buying and flipping and making loads of money. And yet the strategy of buying and holding is what builds you long-term wealth. Yes,
that is true. And it's what I would say about this, again, this is my personal opinion about buying and flipping, is that it's way riskier. Couldn't come up with that word. It's way riskier, and you need to know more, right? Unless you hire a crew to take care of the stuff for you, you're GCing that whole experience. The risk is greater. You need to know more. It usually costs more because now you're buying a property, maintaining the property with no tenant, and spending money on can you make money on the flip side? Certainly. But that is also far more market dependent. You kind of do need the deal going in, and the market can't crash on you before you're ready to sell, right? So it's far more market dependent. The buy and hold is a longer strategy, and it's more market resistant than the flipping. Plus, I've seen way more people get themselves into really deep debt by being flippers than buying smart real estate and just being investors, right? Because here's the thing, when you buy smart and it's about the income, and if you get yourself in trouble, you didn't buy it hoping it would appreciate, right? So if you get yourself in trouble, it's not because of the you still have the income on that to get you out of that trouble. I don't know, just my thought.
And Rick, I wanted to thank you and Donna for giving me these ideas today. I mean, everyone collectively, because when I started working with short sales and foreclosures and multiple offers, I actually wrote 3 articles, and I sent those 3 articles to my clients constantly, depending on the case we are working on. And now I'm going to turn these 3 articles into a YouTube videos. And it is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, really smart, really smart. That's excellent. All right, guys, these were very helpful to me. I hope it was helpful to you. Minimally, it was helpful to me to understand what it is you're looking for. And as I put together kind of the beta version of this to bring it back to you and say, okay, here's what you said you wanted. Is this what you meant? And then let's tweak it from there. We can create something that people can start using as soon as the next couple of weeks. So. Thank you, as always, for your time. Again, I hope the information was helpful coming out. I know it was certainly helpful coming in, and I promise I will continue to work on this concept and idea to give you more of a structured something or other to put this idea in place.
And Rick,
yeah,
you promise that you're going to repeat the listing thing from the beginning when you were not recording.
Oh yeah, right. So I have to remember what I said. So I think what I said was, the whole point of doing this with every single person you sign becomes that it's just part of the process. And if you had a conversation with a seller, so Silva was my seller, we would sign the documentation and finish filling out the paperwork. I would congratulate her. You know what, Silva, I think you're making an awesome decision here. 2 things we have to schedule. Number 1, we need to schedule the seller strategy session. And so we're going to schedule that for about 21 days out. And what that is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is a look back at the last 3 weeks of where we've been, and then a look forward about where we're going for the next 3 weeks. So that's number 1. Let's take out our calendars and schedule that. Number 2, we have to schedule what we call our IC, and that's the investment consult. And so as part of my services to you, one of the things that we will embark on together in the next week or so is a short consultation around the benefits that exist when you choose to grow wealth by purchasing investment real estate. So I think that's what I said, Silva, something to that effect. And then we also had a quick conversation around, well, what if the seller says, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I just put my house on the market, right? So why would we need that? Have that conversation? That's a great question, Silva. I appreciate you asking it. The idea of having that investment consult with you now as you're putting your most valuable asset on the market is that presumably once we find a buyer and the property goes to closing, you're going to have decisions to make about how to use those funds, right? You're selling your assets, so there'll be funds at the end. And what I find is that oftentimes after this consult, I have some clients who decide to make a different decision on how they're going to utilize some of those funds, in that they choose to buy something smaller and buy an investment property, or maybe they choose to purchase 2 properties. That's kind of the same thing, or they choose to utilize those funds and set some aside for a later purchase, right? If they don't have enough for a down payment and their next purchase, but they can make smarter, better decisions about how they're going to utilize that money after we've had this consult, because I find that a lot of people don't even think about utilizing the funds from the sale of their home to start the whole process of growing wealth by investment real estate. So I hope that's helpful. I'm pretty sure that was the gist of the scripts that we were using. Yes?
Yes, I took notes and it was pretty much spot on. And also you said it's pretty much you don't know what you don't know. You said that if you don't think about it, I mean, people, when they put their house on the market to list, there are so many conversations that they still and yet have never taken place. And if you don't think about it, therefore you wouldn't know how to use it and how you can benefit from it. So therefore I come here as your listing agent and service consultant to give you this idea so that we can actually do the right thing.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of goes along the lines of, you know what, guys, I'm not here to just be your listing agent, get your home sold and shake hands and hope we see each other again. I'm here to help you make decisions that could literally benefit you for the rest of your entire life. And I take that role very seriously, right? So you can kind of move into the conversation that way as well by outlining the fact that if you're looking for just somebody to put your house on the market, like I'm not that guy. Instead, here's my process. My process is get the paperwork done, get the house on the market, and then let's talk about what all of your options are, right? So that, again, I'm not a wealth manager. I'm not a financial person. What I am, though, is somebody who understands how money can be used to your benefit. And I want to make sure that you know everything that I know and put you in touch with the resources that I have to make sure you're making great decisions on the tail end. And that all starts with our 30-minute investment consult.
You have no idea how appreciative I am, because I'm jumping out of this call into a listing presentation and I'm going to use all these scripts like right off the bat.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Guys, with that, for those of you joining us for Ben Kinney, we'll see you in an hour at 3 o'clock. For those of you not, enjoy your weekend, have fun, be safe, and we'll see you on Monday morning.